everybody. Welcome back to yet another wonderful, fun-loving, awesome paranormal episode of Ichabod's House Podcast. We are on Season 2, people, Episode 10, and we are super excited about it. I think I say that every week, that we're super excited about the episode we're on, but we're so excited about it because we love doing this. It's not because I've started drinking Trulies on Easter afternoon. It's not because of that. It's because we're genuinely excited. We had some Google and Beyond, I remember, from last week, and you wrote it down. Did you find that out? Do we need to do that now, or should we wait till next time? I mean, I thought we did. Maybe we didn't.
We did. I'm going to have to get back to...
We are going to get back to you guys on the Google and Beyond from last week's show, and we'll just do it coinciding with this week's show if we have any.
If we remember.
Okay. Do you have any Ichabod's Nose picks?
I do. Our Google and Beyond was, what year did epilepsy become a diagnosis? And what are magnetic movements? I don't have the answers to those questions, so suck it. And my... my Ichabod's...
okay.
My Ichabod's Nose pick is on Hulu, and it is called Welcome to Flatch, which is...
Like flatulence?
Flatch. It's a small town in Flatch, Ohio.
Do we need to start over? No, we're good.
No.
We're good.
Had a little bit of wine with my Easter dinner. And
see, and you have been teasing me because I'm having a Truly.
You're drinking alone in your closet. Therein lies the difference.
But I have 4 children left at home, and this is the only peace and quiet I get is in my closet.
So, Welcome to Flatch is an adorable series in the same vein as The Office and Parks and Rec, where a documentary team goes to a small town to see how small town life goes. It has an awesome actress, Chelsea something or other, I can't think of her name, who, in my opinion, steals the show. She's one of the main characters. And then Stifler from Seann something. God.
Right, from the apple pie movies.
Yeah.
Isn't it apple pie?
Some call them American Pie. This is some quality programming.
I'm in the closet under a spotlight. I'm having hot flashes, and I'm not even drunk yet. There's something very wrong with this. Okay.
Anyway, it's good. Check it out.
On Netflix?
No, Hulu. I'm just gonna leave it at 1. I think I've done enough damage. So, what's yours? What's in your wallet?
Well, I found a show that is super awesome. It's called Anatomy of a Scandal, and it's a British show from. It's on Netflix. It truly is on Netflix. This one is on Netflix, you know, unlike Witchfinder, which I thought was on Netflix and is not. This one is on Netflix, and it's good. It's a political thing where this guy who's high up in the... Do you know they call their judges over there my lord? My lord. Mm-hmm. I cannot see any American calling a judge my lord here.
Mm-hmm. No.
At all. It's very good. It's very intriguing. I haven't gotten very far into it because people keep interrupting me, but it's good.
Awesome.
So there you go. It's a big scandal. There's a big scandal that goes on, and yeah, so it's good.
And that's what it's about. All right.
And so today we are going to talk about the reincarnation of John Wilkes Booth.
So today we are going to dive into the very interesting story of a... So today we are going to dive into the very interesting story of a young man's journey into the recesses of his mind and hear the incredible experiences he brings to light. However, first we need to discuss what exactly reincarnation is And how does one achieve it? Because goals, right?
Goals, for sure. So there are a couple definitions of the word reincarnation. It can mean, and I took these right off of Google, so I'm sure they're completely correct. It can mean, quote, a new version of something from the past, such as the latest reincarnation of the hippie look dude. Or it can mean, quote, a person or animal in whom a particular soul is believed to have been reborn. Such as, quote, he is said to be a reincarnation of the Hindu god Vishnu.
I am sure if you are listening to this, you have heard of at least a few of the famous reincarnation stories of little kids who wake up with nightmares having experienced a tragic death in a war or something. Let's face it, if you love the paranormal, you love a good reincarnation story.
But the stories that I have heard, I'm sure Jen has heard, and I'm sure all of you have heard, have been about heroes or everyday people who have lived everyday lives. There was one story I remember seeing on one of the shows about a young man who, when he was very little, showed signs of liking the music and clothing style of someone from the 1940s. It turns out he knew things, names, places, pop culture, etc., from the life of a Hollywood actor. He was like an extra in Hollywood movies. He actually met this man's daughter, and she confirmed everything that this young man said. It was very interesting. Do you have any you remember?
Yeah, I remember there's a story of a young boy who was a reincarnated World War II fighter pilot, and the pilot was shot down, and the little boy, in I don't remember what decade this was, had memories of this accident and knew parts of the plane and met some of this pilot's war comrades, and they confirmed everything he said, and he knew who they were, they knew he was. And I guess as you get older, you if the theory with reincarnation, if it's real, is kids can remember that past life, but as they get older, they tend to lose that memory. So as an adult, any memories you had of a former life, they're gone by the time you reach adulthood.
Right. Yeah, I've heard that story too. He would wake up screaming, saying he was on fire, and
yeah,
it was a pretty scary one.
True. But I have not heard of anyone being reincarnated who is as famous as John Wilkes Booth. And after researching the assassination of President Lincoln and the capture and killing of John Wilkes Booth and comparing it to the information that our source, Del Leonardi, published in her 1970 book, it has made us pause and wonder if this could really have happened.
Yeah, because we can't say for sure that this happened, right? Historians can't even prove one way or another that John Wilkes Booth was even killed at the Garrett farm 2 weeks after the assassination. With the reincarnation stories that we have heard from small children, these stories have been able to be verified by living family members. This reincarnation story cannot.
It's hard, too, because there's no historical concrete paper trail. There are documents that could be considered circumstantial evidence, but would they hold up in a court of law? Probably not.
Right. Okay, so let's pause for a moment and list our sources for today. The first is, as you mentioned, Jen, the book The Reincarnation of John Wilkes Booth, a case study in hypnotic regression by Del Leonardi. There are also 2 History Channel documentary shows on YouTube that were used. The first is Brad Meltzer's Decoded, The Lincoln Assassination, and the second is America Unearthed, Lincoln's Secret Assassins Exposed. And you can just, search for those on YouTube.
It's April 14th, 1865, and President Lincoln, along with his wife, Mary Todd Lincoln, was sitting in a balcony seat enjoying a play. John Wilkes Booth walked through the front doors of the theater, up the stairs to the balcony seating, straight to the president's section, opened the door, stood behind Lincoln, waited for the right moment in the play, and then took one shot, hitting the president in the back of the head.
Now, no one will dispute that this is exactly, actually what happened. It is from this point on where things get tricky. In our history classes, we learn that John Wilkes Booth jumps from the balcony, trips on the balcony curtain, or the picture of President George Washington, which is on a ledge right in front of the balcony, and breaks his leg upon landing on the stage. As he jumped, he yelled, "Sic semper tyrannis," which means ever thus to tyrants.
He limped off the stage, out of the theater, got on a horse, and rode away with a companion, David Harold. John Wilkes and David rode for 2 hours, 14 miles, to a Confederate safe house, Surratt's Tavern. Supposedly, they picked up guns, ammo, and supplies. It is said that Booth never got off his horse and was only there for probably 5 minutes. He boasted to the people that helped them that he had just killed the President of the United States.
They then headed south to Waldorf, Maryland, which was another 14 miles, but this time instead of taking 2 hours, it took 4. This is believed to be because of his broken leg. They then made an unplanned stop at the home of Dr. Samuel Mudd. Mudd set Booth's leg, and it was here that some think Booth took on a new identity. He shaved his mustache and maybe even colored his hair. But I want to go back for just a second and just, I don't know why he didn't wear a disguise into the theater, because everybody knew him. It'd be like Brad Pitt walking into the theater. You know what I mean?
Because he was an actor.
There. He was a very famous, very well-off actor and had been at this playhouse several times before. And he was there because he was doing a play there, not that particular play, but a play there. And he just walked right in the front doors. Everybody said, "Hi, Mr. Booth." He walked right up the stairs. I mean, it would have been so easy for him to wear a disguise, shoot the president, go out a back door, take off his disguise, and then walk down the street and walk right back in the front door as if nothing had happened. Nobody would have suspected him. You know what I mean? So yeah. I don't know. I guess maybe he wanted to be a hero in the eyes of the people that he did this for. Maybe. I don't know. But I just think that's very, I guess he just has big balls. I don't know.
He should have wore his Michael Myers mask.
Well, for sure. That would have been at least a little more fun, right?
Well, there was no way Mudd could have known that Booth had just killed the president unless Booth told him. Mudd was later convicted of helping Booth and sentenced to 5 years in prison. There is a famous saying, "Your name is Mudd," which is believed to have been derived from these events. According to Brad Meltzer and the History Channel, that's not true. It was actually a phrase that was coined several years prior.
Booth and Harold left Dr. Mudd's house the next morning. There was already a $100,000 bounty on Booth's head. They spent the next 10 days moving south, arriving at Garrett's farm near Fort Royal, Virginia on April 24th. We are taught that Booth was killed 2 days later by Union soldiers. However, there are several people who are now questioning this and believe that Booth actually escaped.
Okay, so maybe he died at the Garrett's farm, maybe he didn't. There is certainly a lot of evidence to question whether the history we have been taught is accurate. So now let's fast forward to 1970 and Dr. Del Leonardi. Dr. Leonardi held a class at her office where she worked in Kansas City. This was a class on self-hypnosis. She dealt mainly with weight loss, smoking cessation, insomnia, memory, and other human problems.
Dr. Leonardi, though, had interests that spanned beyond the normal problems that afflicted her clients. The particular class that started it all off for Dr. Leonardi was her self-hypnosis class that was targeting personality problems and helping her students utilize their minds to a greater extent. This is when she met Wesley. Wesley was there to improve his study habits, and he had never had an experience of hypnosis before.
During one of these classes, the subject of pre-birth regression came up. Dr. Leonardi was not very experienced in this type of hypnosis and was a bit skeptical that she would be able to do it or that there would be a student in her class that she would be able to use. A person has to be able to reach a very deep state of hypnosis, which is different from what most people experience. which is just a very relaxed state, kind of like when you are watching television. She stated that only 10% of patients can actually reach this state. Thankfully, Wesley was one such patient.
He was willing to be Dr. Leonardi's subject and allowed her to hypnotize him many times for the class prior to this. So when the pre-birth regression discussion happened, Wesley agreed to this as well. During the first session, Dr. Leonardi did her introduction, stating that Wesley had nothing to fear and that he could speak to her freely. She told him it was the 1800s, and she asked his name. He replied, John Wilkes Booth.
Now, before we start naysaying anything about how this was faked and there's no way it could be, etc., etc., let's just take a moment to ask, if someone was going to fake being someone, what good would it do to let them fake being one of the most hated men in U.S. history? We aren't saying that it was really John Wilkes who came through, but we just don't want you to jump to judgment right away.
So Dr. Leonardi ended up having Wesley to her house every Sunday evening for a pre-birth regression hypnosis session. I don't think there was any mesmerizing involved.
I was just going to ask. Okay.
Well, there were other people there, so if it was very public, mesmerizing. He was a young, strapping, almost 21-year-old, so who knows?
Who knows?
She invited various professionals and students from her classes to witness the session, and she recorded everything.
Okay.
It wasn't that kind of session, Jennifer.
Okay. When Wesley would speak to Dr. Leonardi as John Wilkes Booth, he would slowly lift his head, sit up straight, and his facial expressions would change. His voice changed as well. He had a rich, full voice with a hint of a British accent. Dr. Leonardi asked the first question.
What is the year?
It's 1863.
All right, so let's rehearse for just a minute. What is the year?
No.
No, not that.
No.
What is the year?
What? Try this. What is the year?
What is the year? Okay. Does that sound good? What is your name? Okay, I got it. It's like trying to hold in throw up. I couldn't do it.
John.
I think you blew out my eardrums. I'm still glad I have my pens on.
John. It's fucking John.
Yeah, you know what? Just do whatever fucking accent you want. Let's do that. Let's throw them out and do whatever fucking accent you want.
Okay.
Yo, what's the year?
1863.
What's your name?
John.
What is your last name?
Booth.
So Dr. Leonardi stated that it seemed like all of the air was sucked out of the room at that time. No one spoke. No one moved. She continued. So, who is the president of the country right now?
Abraham Lincoln.
You got a middle name?
Ford.
Now again, before we hear any naysayers, this is the first session and John could very well be agitated or confused. He could have been referring to the theater where the assassination took place, the Ford Theater.
Dr. Leonardi was excited at first. I mean, this was amazing. Talking to John Wilkes Booth, are you kidding me? But progress was very, very slow, and Wesley, as Booth, was very uninformative. He could be evasive and seemed to resent some of the doctor's questions.
It's important to note here that Wesley did not remember anything about these sessions. When he came out of the hypnosis, it was as if he had just woken up from a nap. He was frustrated that he wasn't able to control or communicate with Booth to help the doctor get the answers she was looking for. So even though he's talking as Booth, and I love a good possession story, he's not possessed. So we just need to make sure everybody understands that he is not possessed. These are actually memories, like as if he was reborn, if he was John Wilkes Booth reborn as this Wesley.
Okay. So the doctor finally came to the realization that Booth wasn't opening up to her because to him, she was merely that, a woman. If it really was Booth whom she was talking to, and he believed it to be the 1860s, social etiquette would dictate that he wouldn't discuss such matters, any matters really, with a woman.
Because they are just not so fucking worthy. I
Right.
mean, good God. They don't even have their own names, for crying out loud.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so she wasn't sure what to do. She thought that maybe she could suggest to John that it was a man's voice that he was hearing, but then she ran the risk of Wesley getting confused and something happening to him. She did mention in the book that this deep state of hypnosis was tricky, and if the person would get confused, or if you took them back so far, they could experience a trauma or something, and it could potentially be a dangerous thing that they're doing. They're messing with their psyche, right? So she says throughout the book how, she mentions, how she doesn't want to put him at risk, and she seems to be very careful with what is going on here. So she didn't want to risk it. She didn't want to risk just suggesting to him that her voice was a man's voice, because if he got confused, bad things can happen, I guess. I don't know. She called for some backup. Bob Brooks, a fellow hypnotist, agreed to help out.
Wesley, or rather John, took the bait and started singing like a canary. In the book, there is a lot of dialogue, a ton. We couldn't possibly go through it all here, especially not after what we've been dealing with so far in our attempts to read dialogue today. So, if you want to read it in its entirety, we suggest you get the book. You can find it on Amazon. We will, however, perform little snippets of the most valuable parts.
Yes. Okay, so Mr. Brooke asks, it's 1864, and you are entering the Ford's Theater. Tell me what you see.
I have walked in. The stage is ahead of me. All the draperies have been removed.
Why has this been done?
There is no show tonight and no scenery.
So what are you doing here?
I am going to be performing here soon, within a few weeks. I arrived in Washington early. I have preparations due. Business to take care of.
What kind of business?
Oh, highly private.
Why are you here in Ford's Theater?
I just want to look around, look it over.
Yeah, but haven't you seen it before?
Oh, yes, but I haven't played here in a while. It's good to get the feel of a building. Every theater has a certain feel, an air about it. Some say that particular ghosts prevail there, if one believes in ghosts.
Do you believe in ghosts, John?
Well, I must admit that there are several things that have happened to me that are rather strange, but I can't attribute them to ghosts or spirits.
Let us get back to the reason for your being in Ford's Theater.
There will be certain special performances given here.
Special?
Of course. Being in Washington, we must entertain the dignitaries, or shall I say, the Congress. And then, of course, there is the president.
The president? What does he have to do with it?
Well, you know, the president comes to the theater. I shall try to make him more welcome this time.
After this, she let Booth rest a minute. Then she suggested to him that he was alone and writing an entry into his diary. And this is what follows is the entry that he wrote into his diary.
Today, talked to Masters about his role in the plan. Had an itchy butthole, planned to get better leaves to wipe with in the lavatory. Masters agreed to follow through with his part of the bargain and felt that the best thing would be to follow through with the other plans made at the last meeting. Heart, smiley face, exclamation point, etc. John.
Clearly, he needs some salve and stat.
Mm-hmm.
The writing meant nothing to the doctor, and she tucked away his diary entry. It would be several months before she would piece this information together with something else.
The doctor explains in the book that it is risky to have someone write while under hypnosis. We'd like to know why that is. If you can get someone to act like a chicken on stage in front of hundreds of people, why is it risky to get them to write? Yeah.
For show. Booth was a very famous actor, as many of us know. He earned about $20,000 per year, which in today's money would be about $456,000, which honestly would be quite a large sum at that time. I mean, I know that Hollywood actors make an obscene amount of money right now, but back, I mean, even in, what was it? The early 1900s, baseball players only made $30,000, which was a lot of money back then,
yeah.
Right? But now they make an obscene amount of money. So I guess I'm just for comparison, $456,000 doesn't seem like a lot for a very famous actor, but it actually was if you put it in the context of the time that it was in. You know what I mean?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So he moved in all the best elite social circles. During a session, the doctor would tell Booth that they were at a party and she wanted to be introduced to people. She didn't know, though, any of the people that Booth introduced her to. So she would act like they were going to a social event and wanted him to introduce her around to all the people that he was seeing there. And she was hoping to get some names of dignitaries or congressmen or other famous actors, and she didn't recognize any of the names, and she researched, and none of them popped out at her. So,
The doctor wanted to get to know Booth on a deeper level. She wanted him to trust her via Brooks and to get details only he would know about the assassination. She decided to take him back to Booth's life, but not into Booth's life. There's a distinction between the two, and this is a practice that is commonly used in this type of regression.
However, Wesley responded strangely. He moved his body about in the chair, and he was getting agitated. "I don't see anything. I don't know where I am." He seemed to be struggling, and the doctor brought him out of it. What do you think, Jen? Let's take a minute to legit or bullshit this so far.
The part of me that wants there to be life after death and reincarnation wants to say legit. There's also a part of me that believes we all retain every snippet of information we receive, however minute that is. We can't access it easily, but we remember it. And so sometimes those memories it would make sense they would only come out under hypnosis. And it would make sense that, you might, under hypnosis, imagine yourself to be somebody like John Wilkes Booth because of something you read or a biography, or you had a certain interest in it, right? Do I think it's possible? Yes. I can't, I'm going to say lay bullshit, half legit, half bullshit.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm still on the fence. I'm teetering on the fence.
Okay, I'm going to save mine.
Oh, okay. That doesn't seem fair.
Because there's things
whatever.
I know.
Okay, that's true.
I know, there's just things I know. So.
Okay. All right. Well, the next interesting bit of information came when the doctor asked Booth how old he was when he left his physical life. 39 is what he answered. But he was 26 when he died, according to our history books. He was accompanied to the Garrett farm by his companion, Davy Harold, and 3 Confederate soldiers. They supposedly stayed there for a couple of days. 26 Union soldiers found them and surrounded Harold and Booth in the barn. The barn was used for drying tobacco and had openings between the slats for airflow.
Yeah, so it was about 2 a.m, and it was dark. But Booth and Harold could see through the openings in the slats in the barn, and they could see the the soldiers' torches and stuff. Booth, according to historical records, yells out, this man wants to surrender." He shoves Harold out of the barn. Poor guy. The soldiers yell at Booth, and they want him to surrender. But he's having no part of that. So they've got Harold outside of the barn, and Booth is being a chicken shit inside the barn.
Did Booth shove Harold out to save him, or to delay his own arrest?
Well, what? I think he was probably all about saving himself.
Okay.
I don't know. That could have been. I get the feeling that he was very, very interested in his own well-being and what he wanted for the country, and I don't think that he would have done that to Harold for Harold's sake.
Okay.
It's just the feeling I get. I could be completely wrong.
Okay. Well, some of the soldiers go to the back of the barn and light it on fire. One of them shoots and hits Booth in the back of the neck. The soldiers who are around the front open the doors and drag Booth out, presumably dead.
Oh, yeah. So, okay. We're going to go back to when just after the shooting happened, and the doctor is talking to who she believes is Booth, and gets this. "Were you with Davy Harold?"
"He was to come shortly after, but I had to leave. He hadn't yet arrived."
"Were you injured in any way?"
"My leg was injured. My leg was injured. My leg was injured. My leg was injured. My leg was injured."
I thought you said it fine.
Fuck. Sometimes I sound like Foghorn Leghorn.
Foghorn Leghorn sounds a lot like Kevin Spacey in, was it The Garden of Good and Evil with John
Cusack.
Cusack, right?
Cusack.
Him.
"My leg was injured."
Now I'm going to think of his Foghorn Leghorn. How did it happen? All right, we got to start this over and do it as Foghorn Leghorn. We just have to. That's how it has to be now.
Okay.
So we're starting over.
Okay.
So the doctor is talking to who she believes is Booth right now. And we decided that because we can't get our accents right, we're going to do all of this with the accents of Foghorn Leghorn. So bear with us. Okay. "Were you with Davy Harold?" That didn't sound like Foghorn Leghorn. I say, "Were you with Davy Harold?"
"Boy, I say boy. He was to come shortly after, but I had to leave. He hadn't yet arrived."
I say, "Were you injured, boy, in any way?"
"My leg was injured."
How did it happen? We're leaning into it. You gotta lean into it.
"I was shot. I had a bullet wound."
Shot, you say? Who shot you?
"Boy, I say boy, I don't know."
Where? I say where? Where did it happen?
"At the theater, on my way out."
Did you fall? Did you fall from the stage?
"Not from the stage, no."
Where? I say where did you fall?
"I fell onto the stage."
When? I say when were you hit by the bullet?
"No, when I jumped."
Did you trip over something?
I don't know whether I tripped or not. I just know that I fell."
Who? I say who removed the bullet from your leg?
"The doctor. I say Dr. Carter."
Not to be confused with, hey, Mr. Carter. How? I say how were you able to reach Dr. Carter?
"Carriage. I say we took the carriage."
Was there anyone with you?
"Mr. Richards was with us."
Who was he?
"Well, I had never met him before."
All right. So we need to give a little bit of context here, other than the Foghorn Leghorn context. According to Booth/Wesley, Booth did not leave the theater on horseback that night because we've all learned that he galloped away on a horse with this accomplice or his companion, Davy Harold, okay?
Right.
But he didn't leave the theater on horseback that night. According to Wesley/Booth, he left in a carriage with this Mr. Richards and went to see Dr. Carter. There was a body double who went with David Harold, and they left on horseback and were instructed to be seen, is what all of this is about.
Oh, interesting. Who were they instructed to be seen by, you ask? In fact, who orchestrated the whole plot to kill the president? Well, it was the knights, not of the Round Table, but of the Golden Circle. WTF, you say? We are right there with you. The Knights of the Golden Circle were about a 500,000 member strong underground political group that had many high-ranking members who also held leadership positions in our state and country's government.
That's right. Some even posit that Jesse James, yes, the infamous Jesse James, was a part of this group. So, did Jesse James and John Wilkes Booth know each other? Did John Wilkes Booth die that fateful day at the Garrett farm, or did he die years later? Tune in next week as we answer these questions and give you more dirt on the reincarnation of John Wilkes Booth. And that's it for this episode. Thanks so much for listening today. We've had a lot of different personalities roll through today, and we are very glad that you stuck with us. We appreciate you, and we are so glad that you tuned in.
We also love hearing from you, so please reach out to us on Instagram or Facebook. You can also reach us at our website, Ichabodshousepod.com.
And you can email us at Ichabodshousepod@gmail.com. And I would like to add on to that, I want to add here that if you have a story about reincarnation, something funky that you know about, we would really love to hear about it, and we'll read it on air if you're cool with that. Because I know that I have my own story. Jen knows about it, that Nicholas, my youngest, when he was about 2, he said he got in trouble, and he said he wanted to go to his other mom's house. And he said that quite often. And I told him that I didn't share, and that he wasn't going to his other mom's house, that I was his only mother from here on out. And I didn't dive any deeper into it. I did not do any regression therapy with him. I left it at that. I am his only mother. So I had that experience. It was really, really freaky. So if you have any of those experiences, please let us know, because we'd love to read them on air, because it's pretty cool. And we know that it happens. We do know that it happens. Maybe this isn't legit, but we do know there are legit stories out there.
Absolutely. We would love to hear from you, so please get in touch. And until next time, please remember Ichabod loves you.
Carry a flashlight and always bring extra pants.